Hey guys, it's Bella, and in this video we are going to read through another one of the miracles from the Gothic Bible, accompanied by some art produced in the Ostrogothic period, which shows us what the Ostrogoths were imagining when they heard this Bible read aloud to them in their church services. And what this miracle is it's the miracle of Jesus curing the diseased or paralytic man being lowered down from the roof. So let's get on with it. I'll read out the Gothic first. Jach warth in ennamadage, jach is was lesians, jach wesun sitandans, phariseis, jach vitoda lesarios, thei wesun gommane, us allama hemo Galileas, jach Judeas, jach Jerusalemon, jach machts Freujens was du Helian ins. So what does this mean? Jachwarth in enamadage, it came to pass, Jachwarth in enama, in one dage of the days. So it came to pass in one of the days, Jach is was Lesians, and he was Lesians preaching, literally. And by the way, this is this kind of thing, he was preaching. It seems to be a relatively common construction in Gothic. Gothic seems to enjoy using the present participle as a way of saying, where we might say in English, he was doing a thing. So just as a note for people who want to speak modern Gothic, it's not too, I guess, implausible to use the present participle for such purposes. And it could even be easier for beginners, like, ik im lesians as opposed to lesian might be an easier way for beginners to get to grips with the language. Anyway, moving forward. Yahweh sun sitandans phariseis, Yah widada lesarios. This is another one, and they were Yahweh sun sitandans, sitting, they were sitting. Pharisees, Yah widodalesarios, the Pharisees and the, literally, witoth is law, so widodalesarios is the law teachers. They we sun gomane us allama hemo Galileas, Yah Judeas, Yah Jerusalemon, which are those men who, thei, with that e suffix at the end, meaning who, wesun gomane, having come, I believe, or gakumane, yes, having come, us alama hemmo, from the whole, us alama hemmo, of the villages, Galilea, Judea, Jerusalemon, of Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem. So the Pharisees and the law teachers had come from these three villages. Machts Freujens was to Helion ins. And Machts, the might, the power, Freujens of the Lord, was to Helion ins, was in order to heal, to Helion ins, to heal them. So what this is saying is that there was enough power of the Lord to heal all of them. And this might be implying heal them in terms of moving them away from bad ideas as a form of healing. So moving on, we have Jachse mans berandans analigra mannan sai was uslitha, jach soki deidun hueva inat berina, jach galagi deidina in anwardia is, jach ni begitans hueva inat berina in manarins, ustigandans anahrot, anskalios, kasati deidun mithama balia in midiem fora Yesua. So what this means is, Yachse is like, and see, behold, mans berandans analigra manan, some people, berandans, or some men, bearing, carrying, analigra, on a bed, manan, a man. So some men carrying a man upon a bed. Sai was uslitha, that man who, because that e suffix again meaning who, that man who was uslitha was invalid, bedbound. Yachsoki deidun hueva ina inat veilina, and they were seeking, or they were like trying to figure out, basically, hueva ina inat veilina, how they might bring him into this building. And we'll talk about this building in a second and the matter of perspective here. It's quite a curious one. Yach galagi deidina in anwertia is, and they might lay this man in the presence of him, so in Jesus' presence. Yach ni bigitandans huewa innat beirina inna in managins, and they were not finding. So this is like the present masculine nominative plural participle. Begitandans meaning they were not finding. Huewa, how, innat beirina inna in managins, how they might bear him. Innat beirina inna, they might bear him in Managins into the crowds, because remember we had the crowds of the Pharisees and Vitalaresarios who were around Jesus at the time, so these men couldn't find a way to bring this guy into the crowds. Ustigandans anahrod, climbing up, stepping up onto the roof like they are up here, on scalios, onto the scales, and that's referring, of course, to the roof tiles. So I find it quite cool that we have a word scalio in Gothic for roof tile. Gasati deidun inna. Oh, and by the way, this is probably the word for scale, like related to the English word for scale. Gasati deidun inna. They set him down, mithamabadia, with that bed. And that's, by the way, so we've got two words for bed in Gothic attested here. We have ligrs and badi here. So they set him down with that bed, badia obviously being the one that's a cognate of the English word bed, in midiem fora Yesua, in the middle, in front of Jesus. Now this is where we should talk about the art here and the perspective, because this is a really curious and interesting kind of choice, isn't it? It's almost like they are unable to paint an interior to show the miracle happening, because that's what's happening in this story. In this story, Jesus himself is inside the house, and he's surrounded by people, and the man is, you know, lowered down to him. But in this Ostrogothic mosaic depicting the event, Jesus is standing outside of the house, and this man is being lowered down, not even lowered down into the house, really. You can see the roof slopes down there, and the man's being lowered down along the side of the house. And I think that, I don't think this is something that the Ostrogoths would have minded that much. They wouldn't have thought, oh, this is, inaccurate to the story, because the point of these images isn't so much to be literal and naturalistic and depict what's going on, but it's symbols to get the point across. Like, this is enough where we see Jesus looking at the man being lowered down from the roof, and people would be like, oh, that's the miracle that when Jesus cured the man who was lowered in from the roof. We get the story, we get what's going on here. The point of this image is to remind people who were in the crowd about this story that they might have been hearing in the Gothic Bible, rather than to realistically depict the story itself. So moving on, I just thought it was worthwhile to note the interesting little choices in perspective there. Jachka sechwans galovin ise quath duthama uslithin mana af litandathus frauachtistinos jach dugunun thakjan the bokarios jach phariseis quitandans huasist sa irodith netinins huas mag af litan frauachtins. Alja ens guth. So what does this mean? Jach sechwans galovin ise quath. And gasechwans, perceiving, so that's going to be Jesus here, perceiving galovin ise, the faith of them, that's referring to the men who are lowering this invalid, quath duthama uslithin. Jesus spoke to the invalid. Also, it just crossed my mind, I do apologize if invalid is like considered a bit of a slur. I don't think it is, but just in case it is, I do apologize for using it here. Mana, man or person, afflitandathos frauachtistinos. Frauachtistinos is our nominative here, so it means your sins. Afflitanda, they will be released thus from you. Jachdugunun thakyan the bokarios jach phariseis. And those scribes, bokarios jach phariseis, the scribes, dugunun, they began, thakyan, to think. So the scribes and the Pharisees began to think, quitandans, saying, Huasist sa, who is that man? Sai rodith netinins, that man who speaks, and I'm not really sure what netinins is. I think it might be curious things or weird things, but I'll check that. Hwas mag afleitan frawachtins? Who is able to, hwas mag, who may, afleitan frawachtins, forgive sins? Alia en skuth. Aside from Alia en skuth, God alone, or aside from the one God. Uf kunan stan Jesus miton in diese, anhafians quathdu im. Hwabithakith in herdhem iswarem. Hwathar est azetis o quitan, afleitan dathos frawartis, quitan ordisiach gang. Athan iwitid fati waldofuni haveth sasunus mans an erthe afleitan frawartins, quath duthama uslithin. So, ufkunans, this is quite a cool word here. It means that, so kunan and kunans, of course, will be knowing. Kunan meaning to know or to recognize. Ufkunans being to, recognize from, or like to fully recognize. Than Jesus. So Jesus is the one who is recognizing, miton in diese, their thoughts, their intentions, and hafians quathdu im, responding, said to them, Hwabithakith in hertham iswarem. What bithakith do you guys think, you all think, in hertham iswarem, in your hearts? Hwathar est azetis o quitan, afleitan dathos frawartis. And this is what we had earlier in this same, no, not in this same miracle. We had it earlier in another miracle in Matthew 9:4-6. Hwathar est rechtis azetis o quitan. So we've got the same words basically in Matthew's Gospel and in Luke as we have in this miracle. Hwathar est azetis o quitan afleitan dathos frawartis, which is azetis, an easier thing, quitan, to say. Afleitan dathos frawartis, so frawartis, since afleitan dathos, they will be released from you, they will be let off of you. Quitan, than to say, ordisiach gang, than to say, get up and walk. And again, those are the exact same words that Jesus said to the man lying on the bed in the miracle in Matthew. So we have ordisiach gang, athan I witid, fati waldofuni habeth sasunus mans an erthe. However, so that you all may know, because E normally as a particle requires a subjunctive verb afterwards, and that will mean that it is intention. So the E signifies so that, and it's so that you may know. Fati waldofuni habeth sasunus mans, that sasunus, the sun, mans of man, haveth waldofuni, he has power. And there's a couple of things to note here. So witid and habed, which is the spelling that we have in the Codex Argenteus, contrast that against thakith up here. The eth ending up there is in fact the second person plural ending, and it should be on witith as well, and also for in this case it shouldn't be habith, it should be haveth, because that is third person singular. But the point is, we should have a thorn at the end here, and we're getting a D, because in the Ostrogothic period, the thorn and the D were apparently being switched up and confused a bit. So it's possible that they might have pronounced this a bit more like either like bithakid, or that they were pronouncing the D more like a thorn. So, and we know that in intervocalic, which means between vowels, the D was pronounced like more like a thorn, like an ev in present day English. So I'm trying to see if I can. Here we are. Wait, no, that's the wrong one. I don't think we have a D caught in between two vowels here that I can demonstrate for you, but take my word on it that a D in between two vowels, you would pronounce it as a the kind of sound. Here we are, ro-vith. That would be how it would be pronounced. Instead of rodith, you would pronounce it as ro-vith. So that distinction seems to be why they are confusing it, because habeth is quite easy to confuse for habev, And if you're pronouncing this letter D as a V sometimes, I can see why they would get that confusion mixed up. Anyway, we've gone way off track with a sound change wankery here, sound change simping, as I like to say. Athani witi thati waldufni havet sasunus man ana erte. However, so that you all may know that the Son of Man has power, waldufni, ana erte, upon earth, afleitan frawachtins, to forgive sins. Quath duthama uslithin, he spoke to the invalid. Duthus quitha, urvisjach ushafjans thata bari thinata gang ingard thinana. Jach sun seu ustandans in andwerthia ise ushafjans anathamilag galeth ingard sinana mikkelijans guth. Jach usfilmi dissat allans. Jach mikkeldeidun guth jach fulle worthun agisis quithandans. Thati gasechwam wilthaga himadaga. So, what this means is, duthos quita, I say to you, and this is Jesus speaking to the invalid here. And also this might be one of the reasons why they chose to do the perspective this way, is because it can have the gazes be more direct. Jesus can look directly onto the invalid in a clear line here, especially as one is walking through a church, whereas if Jesus was inside here, it would be harder to direct his gaze in a way that's more obviously upon the man. You can't have them make eye contact in the way that they do in this image. Anyway, so we have Jesus says to the invalid, Uris jach ushafjans thata badi thinata gang in gard thinana. Rise, Uris, rise up, jach ushafjans, and, taking on. Hafjan is to sort of take on or to join, and ushafjans is picking, attaching to. So this is basically picking up or joining to. Thata badi thinata, that bed of yours. Gang ingard thinana. Go, walk, ingard thinana, into your house. Jach sunsel ustandans in andwerthia ise. And immediately ustandans, standing up, in andwerthia ise, in the presence of them, and that's referring to the invalid standing up. Ushavians anathami lag, raising up, anathami, that thing on which, and there's an implied body here for like the bed, because thami is neuter dative with the e suffix, neuter dative singular with the e suffix of the definite article sa, and it's implying, because body itself is neuter, it's just implied that it's there because we have a neuter form of the definite article here. So basically it's saying, Usafjan's picking up body, the bed, anathami, upon which lag, he lay, or was lying, galeth ingard sinana Mikkeljan's guth. Literally, Mikkeljan is like big up. Bigging up God, or like, praising God. Galeth ingard sinana. He departed into his house. And those of you who've watched my other little Gothic Tidbit videos will notice that this is a very similar wording and phrasing to the miracle in the Gospel of Matthew that we saw before. Urdisans galeth ingard sinana. Rising up, he departed into his house. And the ending is very similar as well. So what is the ending of this one? Jach usfilmi dissat allans. And this is a really cool word, usfilmi. It's like wonder of amazement, basically. Dissat allans. So again, this is another interesting word, sitan, to sit upon. And disitan is, the dis prefix normally means to do completely or utterly. So it's like amazement completely sat allans, or upon them all. So amazement utterly sat upon them all. So what it's saying is that they were all completely amazed, basically. They were stunned. Jach mikhil I deidun guth. They praised God. Jach fulle worthun agisis. Fulle, worthun, they became agisis, of fear. Quitandans, the men saying, Thati gasechwam, Wolfaga himadaga. We saw Wolfaga, a glorious thing or a glorious miracle, himadaga, on this day, or glorious things even on this day. Wolfaga. We saw glorious things on this day. And there we go. That is the end of the story. As you can see, go on to the next one afterwards. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed going through this bit of the Gothic Bible while looking at the art, which shows us what the Ostrogoths were imagining when they heard these words. If you want me to teach you Gothic or any other languages that I do on this channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which is linked on the main page of my channel and hopefully in the description of this video also. If you want to join my Discord server, we sometimes do free Latin classes there, and we also have a bunch of resources for learning lots of medieval languages, and it's also a fun community. We're quite active, we share memes. You should come join us and have fun. And with this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye everyone.